Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Conversations with Dene, your family law and wellness needs. We are here today for our episode, taking a look back. So today we're just going to explore a little bit our previous 4 episodes and what we've learned from them, what we've gathered from them as we move forward into what will soon be the last quarter of the year. I am Dene Matthews. I am the owner of a small boutique law firm in Metro Atlanta, the Dunn Matthews Law Firm, where we focus on family law matters, custody, divorce, child support, etc. And I started this series and podcast as a way to encourage, empower, and enlighten individuals alike all around the world as they explore their domestic issues that they may be dealing with in their normal lives that intertwine it. And so over the course of the last 4 months, we have had Tramika Craddock, who is a mompreneur and a coach for moms dealing with the day-to-day struggles of motherhood, right? And in conjunction with whether or not they're dealing with a business and things of that nature. We have had Tracy Poisoner, who is a step-parent coach, a stepmom coach to be particular. She also helps dads with the Undeletable Dad series that she has going on. There are videos on YouTube that assist individuals with that. We had Janice Jones, who is a mediator, and she discussed mediation do's and don'ts and the benefits of mediating your case as opposed to litigating it and allowing a judge to make decisions for you on about your life, the life of your children. And then last month, we had LaFaya Mitchell, who is the owner of the LaFaya Way. And LaFaya talked about the mental health of our children and how the mental health of our children is impacting their day-to-day lives as they go back on this journey of re-entering school, post-COVID, or really we're still in the midst of COVID, but how to help them help themselves and how to pick up on whether or not they are experiencing any form of mental issues, any anxiety, any stress related to entering into the schools again. And so just to kind of take a step back first to Tramika's conversation with me, she gave a lot of tips and tricks on how to co-parent when you live in 2 separate homes, while also making sure that as a mother in particular, right, because we did that series in May and Mother's Day was right around the corner, but how to make sure that you're keeping yourself together. So we talked a little bit about self-care and making sure that you are tending to your own needs as well as the needs of those around you to make sure that you are up to par and well taken care of, and you're not like falling on the wayside and just being completely unavailable mentally because you're not taking care of yourself. We talked about making sure that you have a calendar, a family calendar, whether that's inside of your home as well as a calendar with your co-parent, whether you're going through a divorce or a breakup that involves children and you are in the midst of, just trying to figure out, how do I do this co-parenting thing? How do I make sure that my ex, whether that's ex-girlfriend or boyfriend, ex-wife or ex-husband, is still involved in our children's day-to-day lives? And so she talked about having a master calendar of all the events that are happening, the doctor's appointments that are happening, the school award programs that are happening. And that way that cuts down on the communication that's happening back and forth, especially in a situation where you very well may not like your co-parent. You very well may not have a good relationship with your co-parent, and that's okay. That's okay, because sometimes it's just not an option for some people, but there's still ways to make sure that that person and both people are involved in the day-to-day of that child's life. And so the master calendars work really, really well for that purpose, as well as just keeping you grounded and knowing what's happening, and so you're not overly stressed. We also talked about co-parenting apps, right? There's tons of co-parenting apps, and you can put that information into the app and not worry about it. Right? You get the calendar at the beginning of the year, and you know that there's going to be a recital in December, and you have a tentative date, and you put the tentative in parentheses or whatever it may be. Your co-parent can see those things, and there's not a question of whether or not I'm sharing enough. Did I share everything? Do I remember if I sent that text message? That's not necessary. Everything is there and everything is available. We also talked about that month about trying to just rebuild marriages. If you are in the midst of potentially thinking about a divorce and you just don't know, Tramika gave some ideas on how to rekindle that marriage. And one of the great things that I liked about that conversation is she talked about COVID and how COVID has kind of shifted the ability for people to go out and still have date nights. I know that we're back up, we're open, things are happening. There's shows like right now, Hamilton is happening in Metro Atlanta at the Fox Theater. We can do things now, and it's different, a little different from when we had Tramika on in May. But I think some of those things still remain true, considering the fact that not everyone is comfortable being out and about right now, right? Some people are still in a place where you want to remain indoors, and you want to make sure that you're keeping yourself safe and your children safe. And that's fine. And so Tramika gave some ideas of her business, The Love Box, where they send you a subscription box every month. And that subscription box has lots of goodies inside of it, right? You have questions that are going to help open up the communication flow between spouses, and you've got games to play, and just a way to kind of rekindle what may have been lost because of the pandemic, what may have been lost pre-pandemic. But you have that as an option. And so we talked about taking that step to making sure that you're being proactive and doing something to hopefully avoid divorce. And if you can't, then that's fine too. And then you take the appropriate steps to make sure that your divorce is amicable and it's working out for you, and that it works out for any children that may be involved, and that everyone is being taken care of. We talked about some resources, and I shared, particularly as it relates to children, a book that I really like, which is The Power of a Praying Mom. That's written by Stormy Omartian, and I think I shared it before, but here it is again. And this book just has tons of little nuggets inside, prayers inside, that you can use. I'm just going to go to the back of this one. So this particular one is Teach My Children to Quickly Turn to You for Help. So it is spiritual, a spiritual basis behind it, right? Because most of Stormy's, if not all really, of her books have that type of a background to them. Lord, hear me when I call to you in times of trouble. And it lays out specifically the scripture that goes along with it, so you can have a reference point in going back. She also has a series about Power of a Praying Wife, Power of a Praying Spouse. She does the whole 9 yards. Okay. And I've got them because they are helpful. And so we spoke about those, and I hope that if you were listening and tuned in to our first episode, that you were able to get those books for yourself and start to just, take them down piece by piece and explore what they are about and what they have in them, because I believe it's going to help you in a way that you may not have thought about before, in a way that you may not have even considered would help you. And it's going to do that for you. And I can speak from experience that it has helped me, especially with the children one, and in the way in which I communicate with them or help them has been really helpful. So if anyone has any questions about Tramika, in our first episode, we gave you all of her information, but you can find her on Instagram at Tramika Craddock, on Facebook at Tramika Craddock, as well as on her website, www.tramikacraddock.com. she has a book that she has written about her life story, which can be very helpful to you. Find that she is just like you, just like any of us, going through things that we all kind of go through at different points in our lives. And so I definitely recommend that you check it out. Check out her website. Look into her Mom Squad group for mothers, where there are a group of like-minded women who are trying to be better at parenthood, who are trying to get their businesses off the ground or be better in their business. And we're all, just helping one another get to the next level, and figure out how to be better tomorrow and the next day and the next day, while we're still dealing with what today has given us, whether that's something that we really want or not, right? But we're here, and we have to deal with it. So I definitely recommend that you check out Shamika. And so in June, we dived into fathers, and focused on fathers because June is Father's Day. We were not leaving dads out. Don't believe in that at all. And so Tracy Poisner joined us on that day, and she talked about her business and her history of being a stepmom herself and having to deal with or navigate, I guess I should say, the struggles that came along with being a step parent, the joys of being a step parent, the struggles of helping her husband figure out how to co-parent with his ex-wife. And what she learned from that caused her to create a company on it and to assist other stepmoms as well as dads figure out how to communicate with someone who may be high conflict, with someone who may not necessarily want to communicate with you, how to co-parent and parent from a place of leadership, and showing your children that things are going to be okay. It's not their fault, and that you're not going to bash, per se, the other parent. If something happened at their home, you're going to listen to your child and what they're telling you about what occurred at the other parent's home, and you're going to acknowledge their feelings, but you're not going to diminish the other parent and what they may or may not have said or did, or create a negative environment, right? In that situation, you very well should probably approach the other parent and question them, or not necessarily question, but have a conversation with them about what they said or what they did and how they did it and how that made the child feel. But you're never going to involve the children in that form of conversation or dispute, right? Because you want to make sure that the children are or remain, I guess, innocent as it relates to what's happening in the adult affairs. And so we talked a little bit about that, and she gave some really, really great examples and information as it relates to that stuff. Tracy talked about her group that she has for fathers, and she talked about the Undeletable Dad and how, although there's this history or connotation that dads don't want to be involved, or they're not involved, or they're not going to be as great as a mother will be, that they in fact are, and you cannot and should not delete them because they have value and they add value to a child's life. There are tons of statistics out there, if you just do a search, that show that the involvement of a father can take a child who's struggling in school, for instance, and elevate them, and they're going to start performing better and being just a different type of child when they have that positive father figure in their life and positive mother figure in their life and mother role. It's not one-sided. We both roles have to make sure that they are doing what's in the child's best interest. And that's kind of what we dove into and spoke about with Tracy. And so I encourage you all to look into Tracy's programs. She has the Spectacular Stepmom Facebook community. So if you go on to Facebook and use that search feature, the Spectacular Stepmom. She also has a podcast, the Essential Stepmom podcast. And she made it very clear that it's not just a married stepmom, right? Whether you are dating someone who has children or you're married to someone who has children from someone else, that's the role also. So her podcast and the Facebook community help all women who are in a relationship with a male who has children from someone else. Because the things that you hear in her program are things that he's going to ultimately hear, things that are going to help build him up, things that are going to help encourage him to reach out to the mother of his children and stop the alienation that may be occurring or stop the contempt that may be occurring. And so that's going to be important. So she's also active on the Visible Man Discord. So I hope that if you tuned in to that second episode that you went out in search of all of the resources that she mentioned. And if you did not, that's why I'm doing this as a recap so that we don't get too far along and you've kind of forgotten what the previous episodes were about. Go ahead and start searching in those things and start the process in this last quarter of the year to make sure that you are proactively working towards being a better parent, being a better spouse, being a better co-parent. And that's going to take you so much further in 2022 than you could possibly imagine. The resources out there are absolutely amazing. And I think that we've put together a great bundle of resources for you all. Our third episode was Janice Jones, who is a mediator in Metro Atlanta. And we mostly discussed on collaborative resolutions to litigating your matters. Because when you go in front of a judge, that judge is only hearing a piece of the puzzle. It's only an hour. It's only a full day. It's only a couple of days that could not possibly dive into everything that your life has encompassed. It could not possibly consider all the things that your life may entail moving forward, whether there are children involved or not. And so we talked about how it is very important for people to take mediation seriously and to consider mediating their issues so that you are the voice of your own destiny, right? It gives yourself as well as your spouse or your, the person, your boyfriend or girlfriend you're now separating from, the ability to create an environment that you two know you can deal with, that's going to work best for you, that's going to work best for your children. You know what type of money you're going to need after your divorce. You know what your budget is. And you can kind of create a framework and do whatever it is that you want to do in mediation. And it's not someone just giving you what they feel the answers are. Mediation is a less stressful way to litigate your case. And it's most certainly a more cost-efficient way to litigate your situation. And so we just talked about all of the benefits that come along with that. One thing that she specifically mentioned is before going into mediation, making sure that you know you have enough information to mediate in a way that's going to get you a resolution. She very specifically mentioned having realistic expectations prior to entering into mediation, knowing what you can do, right? But also knowing, because I've been with this person long enough, I know what they can do and what they can't do. And then I'm also, though, going to listen to what they tell me they can do and what they can't do, because whether I realize it or not prior to entering into mediation, the person on the other side is going through the same thing as me, even if they were the person who caused the issue. or if it was me causing the issue. They're still going through the exact same things that I am going through. We're separating after being together for however long, even if that's a year, two people just dating. You're still separating, and your life is going to now change. And so they very well may be feeling some of the same feelings as you. But knowing or having those realistic expectations of what life is going to look like, or what you have available to you in your capacity, is going to take you much further. We talked about making sure that you are grounded in yourself. So whether that's therapy or meditating or yoga, whatever you have to do to make sure that you are mentally grounded is going to be important as well before going into a mediation session, so that you're not feeling overwhelmed or that you're feeling defeated by the other person, or that they're getting everything. No, because you know what you needed before you came in, and you felt comfortable with what you were asking for. And you also feel comfortable with any negotiations that are occurring, because you know what, or knew what to expect before you even went in. And I think that's just very important to even think about or consider prior to going into mediation, knowing what your parenting plan expectations are. How much time do you want to spend with your child? How much time do you desire for them to spend with their co-parent? How much time does your child want to spend? And knowing what those relationships are, all intertwined, and go with all of that. And then the last person who we brought on last month, anyways, it's not the last person of the series, of course, but the person who we brought on last month was LaFaya Mitchell. And LaFaya has over 20 years of experience offering parents effective strategies for dealing with children who are dealing with some really high-leveled issues. Right. And so if she can deal with those high level issues, she most certainly can help parents deal with children who may not have the same level of issues, but are still encountering some mental problems, some anxiety, some stress, some whatever it is. Right. And so we talked about being able to sense when something's going wrong. Is your child talking differently? Are they in their room more often? Does it seem like they're on social media a lot? Are they trying to impress someone? Like, what's going on? And asking questions that are going to get you to an answer. And not overbearing your child, right? We did speak about like not being necessarily the annoying parent, and the parent that the child's definitely not going to want to speak to. But we did speak about just making sure that you are being an active parent. And also involving your co-parent in those same conversations. If you notice that something is off, then you make sure that you inform your co-parent, so that when your child goes to that person's home, then they know what's been happening over the last week or the last 2 weeks or however long it has been. And so everybody's in the loop. And we can all approach this in a way that's going to help the mental health of the child, and help push them back into a safe space and a space that they're used to. Children are entering back into school. We talked about that, and COVID, and of course right now there are quarantines happening all over the place, and children being sent home for 2 weeks, and schools are canceling school in general and moving back to digital. There's so much going on that is affecting our children in a way that we may not necessarily understand, especially if they are not as vocal with us, or if we're not asking the questions, or if we feel like they just, they seem fine. But she spoke about very specifically the things that are the questions that you need to ask to make sure that you are being present. And making sure that your children know that you are present. She talked about her group, Parents Empowering Parents. That's a program that LaFaya offers that I highly encourage you all to look into if you have not already. You can find that information on her website, www.lafayaway.com. She has books that she offers. And I think she very specifically brought up the books during our conversation. And the one that I like the most is A Fresh Approach to Parenting Hypersensitive Children, as well as Becoming the True Parental You. And so even though it says hypersensitive children, I think, again, a hypersensitive child, and she talked about this during our conversation, is someone who, every little thing may get their attention. It might be an ADHD child. It might be someone who just noises cause them to be on high alert, or it could be the smallest of things that make them very hypersensitive. But it could just be a very simple child, a quiet child. It could be your child who is just overly active and overly, it seems like they're bubbly, but then they have those moments of breaking down. I've got one of those out of nowhere. Break down. Okay. But it's making sure that you are present. And so I think if you look into the Hypersensitive Children book that she has, it'll most certainly help you in addressing or seeing issues that may exist for your child who may seem like absolutely nothing is wrong. Okay. And so again, I kind of just wanted to, on today, just take a look back at the what we have seen over the course of these last 4 months in the series, and reiterate the importance of making sure that you're checking out the resources that are there, and that you are proactively, and not waiting until it's too late, but you're actively exploring those things. And so I want to make sure that you are following us on social media, that you are subscribed to our YouTube channel, where we provide videos to give you advice or tips or just encouragement to get through the next thing that's happening in your life, whether that's a legal matter or not. But that you subscribe to our YouTube channel to make sure that you're getting that information, that you are following us on Facebook, on Instagram, where we give you encouragement every day, where we are giving you advice. Over the next month and a half or so, we will be exploring finances, and finances that deal with divorce, finances that deal with just being a single parent, because you're no longer a household of two. And so how do you budget for your life now? How do you make sure that your kids are helping you with that? You're not giving them everything. Maybe they have an allowance. Maybe they have chores. But we're going to be focusing on finances over the course of the next month and a half as we enter into the holiday season. We want to make sure that we are not spending so much money on our kids, so much money on ourselves as we enter into November and Black Friday and Christmas shopping and all the things that come in the last 2 months of the year. So check us out on all of the social media platforms, as well as our website, to make sure that you are staying up to date with what is happening, and how to prep yourself and prepare for what is coming in the last quarter of the year. I want to thank you all for tuning in for this episode of Conversations with Dene, Your Family Law and Wellness Needs, and we'll see you next month as we have a guest on talking to us about finances.